Good morning. Welcome to Peace United Church of Christ. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Happy New Year to everybody. Isn't it great that we've been able to worship on Christmas Day and New Year's Day this year? I just think that's awesome. So we're going to have worship today. We're starting a new worship series called Who Are You? And we are starting with Following Our Star. So we're grateful that you're here. I'm going to begin with some opening words this morning. Interestingly enough, adapted from Isaiah and a fellow named Alex Nachman, who wrote Pokemon Black and White. So that's a great way to start the new year, I think. Arise, shine, for our light has come, and the glory of the Holy One has risen upon us. Wherever we are is right where we should be. So let us listen. Listen to our hearts and believe in what we dream. Our light has come. Let us follow. Follow our star.
The Old Testament reading is from Isaiah in chapter 60. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Holy One has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples. But the Holy One will arise upon you, and the Holy One's glory will appear over you. Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Lift up your eyes and look around. They will all gather together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from far away, and your daughters shall be carried on their nurses' arms. Then you shall see and be radiant. Your heart will thrill and rejoice, because the abundance of the sea shall be brought to you. The wealth of nations shall come to you. A multitude of camels shall cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and frankincense, and shall proclaim the praise of the Lord. And in the New Testament from Matthew. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least upon the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Herod then secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. And from this time and place, Pokemon Black and White by Alex Nachman. You can reach for the stars and know that in your heart you have the strength deep inside. Let it be your guide You can fly past the moon and race all afternoon. Don't be afraid to make a choice. Raise your voice. Just follow your star. Spread your wings and be free wherever you are. Wherever you are is right where you should be. So listen to your heart and believe in what you dream and follow your star. There's a time when you know how to find your destiny, which with each turn in the road, it's clear for you to see. So push through the days, don't let your spirit fade, throw away all your doubts, oh, sing out loud. Just follow your star, spread your wings and be free, for wherever you are is right where you should be. So listen to your heart, believe in what you dream, and follow your star. Just follow your star, spread your wings, and be free. Wherever you are is right where you should be. So listen to your heart and believe in what you dream, and follow your star. Follow your star, follow your star, follow your star, follow your star.
Have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. What seems conceived bad manners as cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You don't know what wars are going on down where the spirit meets the bone. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Arise, shine, for your light has come. Your light, our light, a star shining brightly, a star some magi from far away land follow to Bethlehem. Each January, we bring the new year in, and we hear about light. We hear the story of the magi bringing gifts, the magi who saw a star and followed it. This year is no different. This year we begin a worship series called Who Are You? And we begin with the star. We begin with the star that leads people on a journey. We begin with hope and expectation, and, if we're honest, just a little trepidation brought on by this invitation for us to follow our own star. It's not an easy journey. The Magi's journey was long, likely risky. They had to deal with a corrupt king, a dangerous king, a king who brought harm to the most vulnerable people in Bethlehem. And they didn't really know where they were going. They put one foot in front of the other, looked up to make sure the star was still there, and kept going. Following the star, our star, can and will be long, risky, and we will likely encounter systems that are harmful to the most vulnerable of people, harmful to us and people we love. We don't know exactly where we're going. There are bound to be difficult days. People will wonder about us and the way we are headed, and we will wonder about us and the way we are headed. And still, we are encouraged to follow the star, one foot in front of the other. This morning, I want to simply tell a few stories about what it means to put one foot in front of the other, to follow a star, even when we don't know exactly where it is taking us. On October 12, 1998, Matthew Shepard was brutally murdered in Laramie, Wyoming. Was hung offense to die. This community, Peace, United Church of Christ, spent a considerable amount of thought, prayer, and deliberation trying to figure out what to do in response to such cruel action. The congregation decided that a public response saying no to hate and yes to faith and diversity was necessary, so a group of people gathered together to discern next steps. What came about was the rainbow fish tree. A rainbow to remember God's promise and presence among us. A fish to incorporate a symbol of the early church who used the fish to identify a fledgling and radical community following the way and all it meant, welcome and belonging. In January 1999, the first rainbow fish topped the undecorated Christmas tree and stood at the front of the sanctuary, waiting for the people of peace to make their way to its green branches and place bits of colorful string there as a symbol of their commitment to become a more tolerant and loving people, working to bring shalom to the world. Each Epiphany since 1999, we have placed a rainbow fish on the top of the Christmas tree. In the last couple of years, it's been Blanche. And we have recommitted ourselves to being a more tolerant, loving, welcoming people. A people who works for shalom. Each year we remind ourselves that this work is not complete and that we must continue. We are on a journey. We are following a way that breaks down barriers and labels and stereotypes and hatred and fear, and instead brings love. Calvin was a long-haul truck driver with an 8th grade education, and Eugene Peterson says in his book, The Pastor, Calvin talked like the 8th grader education he had. He, his wife June, and their children lived in a trailer park, a mobile home complete with Elvis Presley posters on the wall. On one of his road trips, Calvin had all of a sudden become repulsed by the conversation he heard over the CB and decided it was time to start attending church. You know, go figure why people make a decision to start attending church, but that's the reason Calvin gave. So with a Gideon Bible picked up on one of Calvin's long hauls, they made their way to a worship service June had heard about in a house church close to them. She thought this might be the right place for them to worship. Well, it wasn't. But Calvin and June didn't know that they didn't fit in, so they kept going. As the church heard Calvin and June's story, and Calvin and June heard theirs, the congregation forgot that Calvin and June didn't fit in. Common ground filled the space under their feet. Within a year, Calvin began to serve as the church deacon. Gone were all the labels that would keep them apart. Instead, they found community and an understanding that they were all children of God. You don't know what's going to happen when you put one foot in front of the other. It was day 31. It would be a difficult day. It would be filled with wind and rain and the steepest incline in the province of Galicia. Sometimes on this day, putting one foot in front of the other was incredibly difficult for me. At one point, I looked up and saw a few dots moving up the very steep incline ahead of me like ants in a line making their way to the peak. I stopped to get a better look. The view took my breath away, not because it was beautiful, though it was, but because I was headed in that direction, and I knew that in a matter of minutes I would be one of those ants attempting to move up the very steep incline. It was the highest point in the province of Galicia. I was wet, I was cold, and the thought of putting one foot in front of the other was daunting, but there was nothing else to do. So I began to walk again, one foot in front of the other. It took forever, inches at a time. Sometimes it felt like my toe would hit my shin. It was so steep. I was scared that if I stopped, the weight of my backpack would tip me backwards, and I would tumble all the way down to the bottom and have to start again. So I did. Finally, the top was in sight. As I came to the peak, I looked around, and there to my right was the most beautiful sight. A little cafe, doors wide open, chickens running around in front of it, and it was filled with pilgrims. That's what we call ourselves, pilgrims. One long table cluttered with food and gloves and hats and soaking wet human beings speaking many different languages. Laughter and chatter filled the place, and a fire kept us warm and dried us off. At least a tiny wee bit. After a good hearty meal, a now requisite cup of coffee con leche, and the sage advice to use my wool sweater as a base layer next to my skin as a way to keep me warm, even if it was soaking wet, I resumed walking, one foot in front of the other. Not quite sure where I was going, but confident I was following the Camino, which means in English, the way, the star. We don't know exactly where we are going. We don't know where we will land or if we will land. There are bound to be difficult days. People will wonder about us and the way we are headed. We will wonder about us and the way we are headed, and still we will go. Still, we must go. You see, that's what it means to be a follower of Jesus, the way. So right now, I would like you to take the star you picked up on the way into the sanctuary. You'll see that it's a plain old star, except that it's got a fingerprint on there. It's like identification, right? And what I'm going to ask you to do is this, is simply write your name on the star. Then when we sing our final hymn at the end of the service, a cappella, you will be invited to hang your star on the tree. This begins our journey to explore who we are and whose we are as individuals and as a community. The journey begins with a commitment, your name written down, to follow a way that is uncertain, that will be risky, include heartbreak, and the deepest joy imaginable. So take a moment to write. Does everybody have a star and a pen? Your name, your commitment to step out on a journey that you don't know where you're going. Sounds great, doesn't it? Happy New Year. I'm just going to say, it is in particular for us as a community called Peace United Church of Christ, we are really stepping out and not knowing where we're going. Is that not the case? We have a future ahead of us that we just can't even begin to imagine where we will end up. So, congratulations to us. I just want to end with a few words from Thomas Merton. They were words that were given to me as a brand new pastor, and from a pastor who had been a pastor for a long time. They are comforting words, I think, to close as we begin this journey together. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself, and the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that this desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils. As we leave this sacred space and go into the world of sacred space, let us remember to follow that star. We don't know where we're going, but we can be confident that if we're all going together and following the way of Jesus, it will be okay. Go in peace.